We should get started. Good evening. My name is Catherine Folking. I'm one of the interim representatives on the school board. I'm also a member of the Policy and Communications Committee. I wanted to welcome both our in-person and our online audience to our community forum. We've developed a short presentation, and afterwards we will have a Q&A session. If you're watching online, please submit your questions to forum@conval.edu. That's forum@conval.edu. On June 26th, the governor signed into law what's been termed as the cell phone ban bill. This unfunded mandate took effect on July 1st and is an additional paragraph to RSA 189 1-A, the duty to provide education. I want to take a moment to share the key points of the law as well as where we currently are in the development of our policy for the Conval School District. So this law requires all public school boards and Board of Trustees for chartered public schools to develop and adopt a policy that prohibits the use of student cell phones and other personal communication devices in schools from the first instructional bell to the dismissal bell. The law does not dictate the policy, nor does it secure any necessary funding to enforce the policy. The definition of personal or non-district communication devices includes, but is not limited to, cell phones, laptops, tablets, smartwatches, and any other device which could be used to send and or receive communications. The use of these communication devices by students is prohibited from the first instructional bell until the dismissal bell. The bill bans the use of any communication device itself, regardless of whether it's actually being used for communication. This includes in hallways, lunchrooms, breaks, or recesses. There are some specific exemptions to this law, and they are as follows. Students with medical needs, such as insulin pumps and glucose sensors, may access their device to monitor their health status. Students with documented learning needs may access their device as outlined in their IEP or 504 plan. And students with multi-language learning needs may access appropriate language programs on their device. Any other approved use must be approved by the superintendent or their designee, and it must fall under medical, disability, or language proficiency needs. So our policy committee is working swiftly to develop a policy to be approved by the school board. Earlier this week, Dr. Forrest sent out a draft of this policy, but even since then, we've received more clarification and there have been some changes. For those in the audience, we passed out a hard copy of the new draft policy, but I will take a few minutes just to highlight some of the major points of the draft policy. The use of communication devices by students, again, is strictly prohibited from the first instructional bell until the dismissal bell. For co-curricular activities, such as sports, clubs, or field trips, student use of these devices will be directed by the coach, instructor, or advisor of the club. However, in no event shall personal communication devices be used in bathrooms or locker rooms. If students bring these devices to school, they will be stored in accordance to each school's established procedure. These procedures will be detailed later on in this presentation. And in accordance with the law, the exemptions I mentioned before are also included in our policy. Parents and guardians of students who qualify for these exemptions should reach out to their building principal on an individual basis. Consequences for violations of this policy will be in accordance with each school's disciplinary procedures as outlined in their school handbook. And this policy will be reviewed annually in collaboration with parents and staff and will be a part of each school's handbook, which is distributed at the beginning of each year and available on the school website. So that's an overview of the law and the policy, and now I would like to turn it over to Dr. Forrest.
Testing. Oh, it's working. Thank you. I want to thank all of you for coming. I wasn't sure with the weather if we would have people would still gear up to come out. So thank you for those of you who are in person as well as people who are online. We absolutely want to partner with our families as we try to understand this law and implement this law. As you can imagine, the impact of this law has a very different impact by level. So for elementary, there are no huge changes from what has already been in place. At the elementary level, we encourage students to leave all personal items at home. And so that would include cell phones. But if a student needed to bring a cell phone with them to school, the expectation is that that cell phone would stay in their backpack or their bag for the entire school day. And if that item was to be taken out and used during the school day, then it would be confiscated and parents would be contacted and they'd be asked to pick it up in the school office. So that really is not a change from what is already happening at the elementary level. At the middle school level, there really isn't much of a change either. So what has already been in place is that there has been an expectation that personal communication devices remain in students' backpacks or in their bags for the entire school day. It has definitely been raised more so at the middle and high school level. What if I need to get in contact with my child? What if my child needs to get in contact with me? We need to work through the main office. So students have the ability to let their teachers know that they need to make a call home. They try to encourage students to do this during lunch or during recess, so it's not interrupting their school day, but they do have access to go to the main office and ask to make a call home, and parents certainly have the ability to call school. Middle school has extended, so the law doesn't require this, but middle school has extended kind of their ban. They don't want personal communication devices after school when kids are participating in clubs or sports or attending after school help or waiting outside for communication. And that is completely due to we want kids to be engaged in the activities that they are at school for. And as far as waiting outside, when that has happened, we have gotten reports from the bus company that kids are not paying attention. Like they'll step right off the side of the sidewalk, and so that's a safety. Consequences for if cell phones or other personal communication devices are taken out and used. First occurrence, the device is taken to the office and the student can pick it up at the end of the day and the parent and guardian will be contacted. The second occurrence, the device is taken to the office, the student can pick it up at the end of the day. The student will be required to drop the device off each morning for a period of time to be determined. If there are multiple infractions, our discipline procedures, we will try to implement interventions. We understand, and I think the high school is going to talk more about this, that for some students, the anxiety of not having access to their phone is a real thing. And so we do want to very much support our students. So we're not just thinking about consequences, but we'll also think about how can we support students in following this law. But if there are multiple instances, then we will progress just with as outlined in our handbook for moving on to other consequences. So where we will have a much bigger change is at the high school level. So the majority of tonight's presentation really does focus on high school because the students here have been able to use them during passing time, at lunch, at recess. So for them, this is a huge change. So I'm going to turn it over to Heather McKillop, Conville High School's principal.
Thank you, Dr. Forrest. Good evening. Heather McKillop, high school principal. I'd like to take a minute to introduce the few people that will be up here on stage with me tonight. So we have Ashley Mudrick right here, Library Media Specialist, Leslie Holcomb, English teacher, Carol Young, Science teacher, and Tyler Mudrick, Special Education, Co-English teacher, Adult Diploma, a little bit of everything. Yes, so thank you for being here tonight. As Dr. Forrest alluded to, the main change will be at the high school, primarily because during passing time and in the cafeteria, students could use their cell phone. There was also teacher discretion in the classroom based off of if there was an educational activity that it could be permissible before. So it's going to be changing a little bit. You're going to hear more about my voice a little bit later in the presentation, but Carol's going to kick us off with the presentation this evening because there is this phone-free group that my colleagues on stage here were a part of was actually born from a book study that happened earlier in the year. So as a high school, we were already thinking about this before the state law came into place. So I think I'll turn it over to you first.
So a number of us, I would say the group probably had 24 staff members in it. We started with a book study of a book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And I have to say, I'm not a big nonfiction reader, and I couldn't put this book down. It really shook me a lot, both as an educator and even more so as a mom. And it made me rethink a lot of things. And I think it had a lot of us rethink a lot of things. The group was a big range of us in age, anywhere from the new folks just starting out in their 20s to some of our folks who are retired and coming back to teach in their late 60s. So it was a big range of people. And all of us, we met 3 different times, had a lot of great discussion, but we all felt really moved at the end of this study saying, we need to do something. We have a call to action and we need to do the right thing by our students. And so some of us chose to continue meeting. And so in the spring, we carried this through and we became the phone-free Conval group. And our intent was to say, how can we have Conval be a phone-free school from bell to bell? And how can we let our administration know that this is something we would like help in achieving? So we did a lot of different research about states that are phone-free, different school policies that are phone-free, different, like, what does the pouch mean? Like some places use a pouch to put the phone in, or a number of different things. And in the end, we were able to present to the Conval administration, like, this is why we think we need to do this, and can we have your help? And they were completely behind us. Later, we, in June, were able to present to Dr. Forrest, and then in June, later that month, we presented to our Conval staff. We also, in part of our research piece, we wanted to know, is it just us, or is it our colleagues too? Like, are we all feeling this way? And we did do a survey of our staff, and we had a lot of support behind that as well. So, and we found out, at the end of June, like, we're willing to do this. So, and then in the summer 2025, lo and behold, the state legislation passes, and members of this group presented to our school district school board.
So this right here is a list of people who were part of our phone-free group. So like Carol mentioned, our actual book study was a little larger, but this was a list of people who wanted to kind of move forward. As Carol mentioned, we had a really great kind of variety of teachers. As you can see, we have almost every department represented, and a lot of the people on this list, like Carol mentioned, have been here for many, many years. Some of us were rather new, some of us were kind of in the middle, so we feel like we had a really good voice to kind of get this moving. And the kind of where we're going with this presentation is we really wanted to let you all know about our why. So why was this really important to us, and what the next steps we recommended were.
So to talk about our why, we feel is really important. When students are fully engaged and present in their learning, they develop deeper relationships and a stronger sense of community, helping them grow both academically and emotionally. We really felt that the use of phones is not, in our experience, enhancing their educational experience as much as it's inhibiting their growth as students. So that's really the heart of our why. We want our students to build strong relationships with each other, with their teachers. We want them to play. We want them to interact face-to-face more than what we're seeing. And we also want them to develop strategies to help them kind of cope with the various struggles and anxieties and things that come along with the high school years in a way that's healthy.
Some of the data behind this, so it's anecdotally as educators seeing students go through this, or even as parents, like you look at your kid and say, is this just me? And there's a lot of data saying this is not just me and it's not just my kid. Like there's a lot going on. So some of the data that is presented by Jonathan Haidt in The Anxious Generation, we included in this presentation. So for example, there was a significant rise in mental health concerns when smartphones were allowed for easy access to social media. So right around like 2004, you have first smartphones and social media is happening. And so the two kind of converge. And in this graph, you can particularly see that the incidences of self-harm, and it's both males and females, greatly increased, and the gray area on that graph shows like when this transition is happening in our society of smartphones and social media being easily accessible. Other symptoms that are, if you can go back to the slide, other symptoms are that we have also had increases in are ADHD, anxiety, depression, tic disorders, in adolescents. All those have been on the increase since about 2010. Next slide. So additional data is, and this is also like uncomfortable to look at. If you look at social media and smartphones, like their sleep habits are declining, right? Which impacts their mental health and physical health, school performance. But the peer-to-peer interactions are also on the decline. So this particular graph shows, the number of students who would say, oh, I'm going to meet up with friends at the end of the school day. And you see there's that gray in area around 2010 where we have the smartphone and social media increase, and you see the massive decline in that. And so the next slide will show like what the actual data, so like MySpace, right? Who remembers that, right? So in 2003, and then Facebook comes on in 2004. The iPhone, right? 24/7 access, 2007, and then Instagram, 2010. And then so this is where we see this positive correlation between the introduction of these smartphones, development of photo and video sharing, and decline of peer-to-peer interactions.
So when we formed this group, obviously the priority was students, student mental health, student well-being, student academics. At the same time, our staff is a very important piece of that puzzle. So we had a lot of data from our staff based on cell phone use in the classroom. We thought the most important note was that every staff member that responded to the survey, 100% of the staff responding, felt that student phone use in the classroom has impacted their engagement, their interest, their learning environment, their curiosity, their behaviors, their distractions. And so the staff, not just the members of the phone-free group, the staff as a whole has been very supportive of this research and this process. And then next steps. So obviously we've got a ban with the cell phones, but what does that look like at the high school? What does that mean? There's a lot of details that go into that. We don't have all the answers to all the questions yet, so that's why the emailing those questions to the email address at the beginning of the slideshow is very important because the community is also going to help us figure this thing out. And so first piece of information that the community needs to know is that we're going to be going to a bell-to-bell policy, which is student cell phones in their backpacks from 7:30 to 2:20 in the afternoon. And there'll be a little bit more description coming up on that. First, we'll look at the connection to Cougar Cares.
So CARES is an acronym for our 5 core values here at the high school. And we really felt like it was important to connect our why to our core values and just bring it back to the center of everything we do here. So we believe that this bell-to-bell policy will foster an engaging community by building strong relationships between peers, students, and staff. And phones will, being not used during the day will help that. Obviously, we'll need to be adaptable. Students, teachers, families, administrators, nurses, bus drivers, all of us are going to need to be adaptable and patient with each other. Respect is our third core value. A school-wide policy will hopefully create a more respectful environment around school. Engagement as a classroom teacher, this one's of course very important to me, but to all of us as a school, we want our students engaged fully in their learning, not just here because they have to be, but because they are excited and curious and passionate about something. And safety. Having this policy, we think, will increase awareness of students' physical environment and also reduce peer-to-peer conflict during the school day.
So as our group was moving forward, we decided to recommend the bell-to-bell policy. This was before the legislation passed. And one of the reasons that we felt really comfortable doing that is because both the elementary and middle school levels essentially already had bell-to-bell policies. And we felt like this would be a really, well, maybe not easy, but a transition that made sense for like our 8th graders coming up into 9th grade. They were used to not having their phones, so that was one of the reasons why we kind of swung big on this. So yes, and then we, as a group, we kind of came up with some benefits and challenges of going bell to bell. I think the biggest one, I know that you guys can read this, but I think the biggest benefit that we were seeing as a staff is we were hoping that this policy would kind of reduce teacher-student conflict, because I think the phones, the distractions, it was kind of making, in a way, the teacher the bad guy if they were constantly asking a student to put their phone away and kind of getting on their case about it, and it was at times a point of contention. So we're really hoping that this new ban will kind of reduce the strain on those relationships, and if it's across the board, it's not like one teacher's allowing it and another one isn't. So that's one of the biggest benefits that we see coming from this. It is going to be a really big change. I think that that was the thing we talked about the most as a group, is this is going to be a huge shift from what our students are used to. And we recognize that a lot of them have, I mean, we all do, have some level of addiction to our phone. We're used to having it, we're used to checking it. So we really wanted to make sure that should this move forward before the legislation passed, that we were keeping supports in mind, because I think a lot of our kids are going to need that.
Thank you. So I'm not going to read this whole slide to you. Dr. Forrest, I think, covered the consequences earlier that will be the same at the high school in terms of different offenses and what would exactly happen. So just to recap those, if a student had their phone for that first occurrence, that the phone would be collected and taken to the office. The student could pick it up at the end of the day, and the parent would be contacted. It's really important for us to have that communication with home, with the parent or guardian. And then the second time, that first part would still be in order, and then there'd be that period of time to be determined by the administration. Another important thing to note is we've been working really hard the last 2 years at the high school in building a really restorative culture. So as we go through this process together and we're adaptable, there's also a learning piece that goes into this, and we have to work directly with the student and the family to figure out what some of those supports might be to help, and it might be different for different students. So there also, is a piece in our handbook that explains that we're going to try to partner with those students and families for some restorative opportunities. I know myself, I'd be happy to lead some restorative circles, and we'll talk about a few more supports a little bit later. And then so enter NuKase. So this is what we're going to be doing at the high school. So this is different from the elementary school and from the middle school, and you're hearing it here first. So this is, I'm going to show you a really short clip in just a minute. This is a cell phone container, if you will. It's a hard case. This is not a pouch. That is translucent. So picture a clear case, but the newest version is a bit frosted. So you can see that the phone is inside that case. So I'll show you this quick clip. If you're interested in shoes.
Introducing the NuKase solution. Students place their powered-off phones inside the NuKase that slide the locking bar closed to an audible click. The student's phone is now securely locked inside the NuKase. At class dismissal, the student slides the NuKase across the unlocking station, unlocking the case and giving students access to their phones. Educator samples are available. Request your sample.
And there you have it. So that's what NuKase will look like. We're still working through as a team exactly what the process and procedure will be like. But it's a tier 1 solution, and each student will be assigned a NuKase in the beginning of this school year. It is not something that has to stay at the school. It's something that they can bring home with them. Again, it is bell to bell, so when students enter the building, there's still some time before that first bell sounds. In their first block class, they'll put their phone in their NuKase. As soon as you slide over that bar that you saw, it's effectively locked, and you cannot unlock it on your own. You'll place it in your bag. That's where it will stay for the duration of the day. And then at dismissal, we have a dozen different unlocking stations and different personnel that will be in those locations. It takes about a second to unlock, and then you'll be able to dismiss for the day. I want to give a real shout out to the phone-free group, because the recommendation from that group is that we moved to some type of a pouch or case system for at least 3 years until our students who had been used to having that contact with their device had graduated, because it was something that they were used to. And there's a lot of data out there, and even the book references, some different things, for example, with like cigarettes. If you can hold the cigarette, if you can see the cigarette, right, there's a change. So this will be required to be in your backpack until the end of the day. Some advantages, the expectation is really clear across the board for all students. The physical barrier of that case prevents it from touching it, disrupting that dopamine cycle of addiction. I think Carol pointed out to it. Just having it or touching your phone or where's your phone, even though I don't use my cell phone during the day often, it's something that if I don't see it, I'm thinking like, where is it? And it removes some of the conflict from the classroom, allowing the students to be focused and engaged on their learning. And for our educators, doing the same thing, also promoting positive relationships. One question that has come from some people have been in regards to what happens if my student has a medical reason or concern. As Kat shared before, there are some exceptions for medical reasons, and there are medical cases that NuKase has. They look the same as everyone else's that don't lock in case there's a reason that you would need to use it. So the building principal would be the contact, so that would be me if someone had a question about that. Again, each student will be provided a NuKase. And students without it will just leave their phone in the main office for the day. So if that block 1 teacher says, please put your phone, I forgot my NuKase, you can leave it in the office. And I think we'll also have some loaners arriving as well. So I already spoke about the locking stations, the unlocking stations. Someone did reach out to me with the question, what happens if my student's dismissed? They can't have their phone for the day. If you're being dismissed, there's an unlocking station, the administrative assistant at the main window, so you can unlock that prior to leaving the building. And supports, I really want to emphasize this because we know it will be a shift. We know that Conval High School isn't unique to other schools, but what we do know is we care deeply about our students and our community. So I think having some grace with each other as we try to figure out the best way to support our students. I've talked with our new District Director of School Counseling, Heather Britton-Doucette. We've already started talking about how we can involve our student support counselors here at the high school, what school counseling might be able to do with some groups, how I can help with some of the restorative pieces, and also hopefully having some community conversations and getting some student voice as we work through and navigate this process together will be really important. And I'm going to pass back to Carol for a minute.
This is a change. It's definitely going to be an adjustment for everyone. My own son is 18. He just graduated from Conval, headed to college on Sunday. He said, I'm really glad I graduated because I wouldn't want to have to not have my phone. He was a big guy who would listen to his music during class. And I will admit, as a mom, if it was my free period, I sometimes didn't hesitate to text him while he was in class, thinking, well, he'll have his phone away, he won't check it. It was really convenient to be able to do that. And as a teacher, it's also convenient having kids. Sometimes it can be convenient to have them have their phones. So if I want them to take videos or photos for a specific project, and sometimes it's also just easier to let the student just be on their phone instead of dealing with the confrontation or dealing with kids who are rowdy or what have you, oh, they're on their phone, whatever, I'm just not going to deal with it. But just because these things are easiest doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And we owe it to our students. We are the adults, and we owe it to students to do what adults need to do. We're the ones who supposedly have our frontal cortexes developed, right? So, I started my teaching career here at Conval in the fall of 1994. So that means I'm entering my 32nd year of teaching. And we have really graduated many, many fine people from this school. And they have gone on, sometimes moving away from the community, sometimes moving back. They've become doctors and nurses and landscapers and contractors and teachers and parents themselves and sending their kids here. And they had the opportunities before phones to maximize here at Conval to get the best out of their education. And we as a staff are seeing that is eroding and that our current students haven't been able to access and maximize their opportunities. And we really feel that it is time for us to do the right thing, pony up as adults, and help them maximize their opportunities so that they too can have those fine opportunities that so many of our graduates have also had.
You want to pull some chairs forward? Or you want... My name is Mike Hoyt, and I'm the school board representative from Bennington, as well as the school board chairman. So we already have several questions that were sent in from people ahead of time. But if you're going to ask a question, please come up to the microphone. State your name, please, and where you're from, and then we will try to answer as many questions as we can. As was stated earlier, some of these things still are things that we're trying to work out. So hopefully a lot of questions that people have already asked were handled in the presentation. So. All right, so if people want to come up to the microphone, if you're going to make a comment, please try to keep the comments down to a short comment so that we can get all the questions answered. All right?
Am I close enough? I have to go closer? Very short. Hi, Ruth Ann Boyce, Peterborough resident. I have 2 sons at Conval this year. And actually, just 2 questions. One, first of all, I know you said, I understand the whole cell phone thing. That's all fine. I have 2 boys who are very distracted and honestly forget a lot of stuff. They're in sports or in activities. Can they email during the day? Is that allowed to email parents? Yeah. Oh, perfect. Okay. That's a lot easier. Just because I admit it, I have 4 boys. Over the years, everybody's seen me here. They forget a lot of stuff. The second question, and that's the only reason I loved having the cell phones, because they'd be like, Mom, my jersey, my blue one. I'd be like, where is it? Anyways, moving on. Second question, what about sports? You didn't specifically mention sports or after-school activities. So if they leave early for a bus trip, whatnot, how does that work? Because a lot of them contact parents on the way home, especially when they run late. Sorry.
Yeah. No, thank you. In regards to sports, I guess I'll two tiers. One, I know a lot of families use the Sports U app, which give notifications to cell phones. The Sports U app is also, before it even came to my cell phone as an administrator, it would come to my email. So all of those notifications that are pushed out can also go to emails for students. And second, for the high school, we're doing that bell-to-bell piece. So if students were dismissed for a soccer game at 1:30, the expectation would be that they wouldn't be using it on their bus, but after school hours, we felt at the high school it was important to have your phone on after hours for different transportation needs and communicating with the family.
Yeah, great. That was all I had. So thank you.
Thanks, Ruth.
Hi, I'm Kat Harper from Hancock. I have a question that's actually more related to the middle school. So I know most of you are representative of the high school, but so I have two children in elementary school. One of them will be going to the middle school, not this year, but the next year. And it's been a concern for myself and other parents in the PTO about cell phone use at the middle school level. And I know that it has been the policy that we don't use cell phones, but anecdotally, from speaking with many parents who have middle schoolers, they've been saying that they do have access to their cell phones. So I'm curious, and we have been looking at something, not the NuKase, but just like, what do we do about this? Because we don't want our elementary school kids then getting acclimated to using devices during school for all of the reasons that were mentioned previously. So I'm curious if the NuKase device or something comparable might be used in the middle schools at some point to enforce or support the policy.
I think I'll defer to Dr. Forrest
Doctor.
since it's the middle school. Thank you.
At this point, anything's a possibility. After talking to administrators, they didn't feel at the middle school that they needed to jump to that because they weren't trying to undo something that had been in place like the high school is doing. But if we got information back that it is a problem, then it's absolutely something that we'd be considering.
Okay, thank you.
Liam Armstrong from Dublin, and I have two questions. My first is, as a current Conval student, multiple times during class, I've had to use my phone specifically for a project. As an example, my German 2 final was split in half. Half of it was a final test. The other half was a video that wouldn't really work as well if I were to record it on, say, my Chromebook, or like if I were to bring in an old camera or something like that. So would there be exemptions for things like that?
The law, this is one of the things we've been talking about and actually consulting with legal. The law doesn't allow us that flexibility. So we are going to have to, if that is something that we want to happen, we have to figure out how we can do that, but by other means other than your own personal communication devices.
Okay, thank you. And my second question, as stated multiple times by speakers up front and on here, this is to encourage and help develop a learning environment free from distractions and disruptions. So will the teachers have any regulations on their phones in order to ensure that there are no distractions or disruptions from their end?
I'll take that one. Yes, even though the law applies to students, we as a staff feel, and as just administrators to custodians, feel that it's really important for the adults in the building to be modeling this as well. So yes, it does apply to staff members, and there will not be personal cell phone use in the classroom.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have some online questions.
Is this on? Oh, yeah, I guess it is. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to, this one I think should probably be taken privately, Next one. Okay, 3 questions for the meeting tonight, and these are from Carrie Mason. I have concerns about coaches and the athletic director using the Sports U app for consistent communication. And this is the sports question again. This needs to be implemented when schedules are changing last minute and transportation needs change. Will this be a priority, or do you have an answer for that?
Yes, so I think I started to address it earlier. The Sports U notification can also be pushed through the email, but I've already talked with Larry Pimentel too for athletics to figure out different ways that we can notify the community when there are changes. So we can do so based off of announcements at the end of the day. The director of athletics can also send an email. So we're going to work through making sure that people have that communication. But I know that the Sports U has been very helpful in the past. So when that goes through at the end of the day, when phones can unlock, you would see those notifications, but they will be on your email as well.
Okay, and
And yes, and there's the website. So I could defer to Helfried, but I think it's like with the Android, Helfried, correct?
Yes, but it's really best to use the website.
Okay. There you go. Best to use the website and to bookmark it. Thank you.
okay. And the second part of that is, will MP3 players be allowed for playing music during downtime?
No. That qualifies as a personal electronic device. I would also say that, whether or not a student is, for example, able to listen to music in the classroom is completely at the teacher's specific directive of, they ask and you say yes, they could. And if that was the case, so say they were working on a task at their own desk and they really wanted the music to focus and they had a conversation with me as their teacher, and I'd be like, okay, Loretta, sure, go ahead. That means that Loretta would use her Chromebook for that and need to use wired headphones to it, because wireless headphones count as a personal device. So the ear things have to have a wire connecting to the Chromebook specifically. Wow. And again, it's up to the teacher if it would be okay for them to use it or not.
Okay. And then the third part, what will the policy be for contacting parents, especially for changes in transportation after school? Communicating through phone calls are more difficult versus texting.
Typically, if there's a transportation change that is outside of athletics, I use Power School and put something out through Power Messenger to families as soon as possible. So that's been a typical practice. If there was an accident or something, we're picking up the phone and trying to get in touch with families as quickly as possible. If it's something directly with sports and there's a transportation change, probably be similar to my other answer. We would find ways to communicate.
Okay.
I think as a classroom teacher, I have had students say, I was going to take the bus, but now I need to get a ride with so-and-so. Students have access to the main office to make phone call, necessary phone calls if they need to. And as a teacher, I think I can honestly say that if a student had that need, we would happily write them a pass to do that.
Okay, the next question is from Kelly Ferreira. And the first one I think we answered, will teachers also be required to follow cell phone? It's a very popular question. What are the repercussions of a student found to be using their cell phone? Something that I think you covered. Will there be more access to phones for students who may need to reach a parent discreetly due to a personal issue?
Again, so we have landline phones in the main office. That's one space. If there's a health-related personal issue, there's also a phone in the nurse's office that our students have used before as well. Also, I can speak as a principal, and I'm sure many of my administrators that are nodding their head yes. If a student asked to make a phone call from our office on our landline phone to their family for a need, we would certainly work with them to do that. And also, just to add, if there's a parent who's thinking, how am I going to get in touch with my student? We would encourage them to call the school. We don't want to be, we still want to be very communicative and honor that there's going to be times where parents or guardians need to reach their student.
Right. Think about what we used to do. And then the last part of this person's questions are, what about kiddos on medical 504 plans? Is there a way to safeguard them if part of their plan requires them to have cell phone for medical emergencies? And I believe we covered part of that, but maybe reassurance.
Yeah, we covered the different exemptions. So, of course, students, we'd have to look over their IEPs or 504s or if there's a medical related question. So, I would ask that anyone that has a question about that to reach out to me directly for the high school so I can help partner with that.
And there are teachers and staff who also have medical needs to have a cell phone. So, I think the everyone is understanding that there will need to be some grace around that.
Okay, this question is from Carrie Monroe. I see that there is a fee for a damaged NuKase, but I also saw the disclaimer regarding the cell phones of the students. Can you explain to me why the school is not responsible for a lost or damaged phone, but the student is responsible for a lost or damaged NuKase or Chromebook?
The line about the stolen or lost phone has been consistent in our handbook, at least since I've been here at the high school. So that part hasn't been a new message. We do have a 3-year warranty with a NuKase. So if there's an unintentional break that happens for some reason, that's not exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about an extreme situation where there's some intentional damage done to the NuKase, and that's a $20 fee. And of course, if there was someone that had a concern about being able to pay that fee, we would work with them.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Fabiola Woods. Is there any concern with students who may have multiple phones who may seek to circumvent the process? And have we anticipated this possibility? If so, what will we do to resolve?
Yes, I'll take that too. Over the summer, I had an opportunity to speak to many different principals, some of who had instituted this in the past. One reason we chose the NuKase is because it was see-through and translucent, because we had heard about blocks of wood going into some of the pouches that you can't see through. Students are very intelligent and creative. There could be something that looks like their phone that they use in their NuKase, and maybe there's a different one. The goal is to have them out of sight, right? Like it should not be in sight. So if our hope is that it is their real phone in that NuKase. But what I've heard from some of my colleagues is that the few students they had that had 2 phones was also in their bag, not being seen. So we're hoping our students follow through. We have a really great community, and even though it's going to be a transition, but we'll take that one at a time.
Okay, I think that completes the questions for right now.
Jesse Markham, Dublin. To follow up on that question, have you thought about any situations where students might not have a phone? It seems like you're going to be requiring them to put it in this NuKase. I was actually talking with someone today who asks their children, their parents of middle school children, and they're not permitted to bring their own phones to school. So I don't know if you have a contingency
That's wonderful.
for that as well.
Yeah, and I would be happy to endorse and say, please encourage your student to not bring their phone to school. That's great. I would happily, if a student says, I don't have my phone, I didn't bring my phone, we're going to take them at their word. We are not going to search individual backpacks on a phone hunt. But of course, later in the day, if a student had a phone in their hands, and they told their teacher they didn't have it, then we would follow through with the process. But I think that's wonderful, and I would smile every day. So thanks, Jesse.
Victoria Burnham from Bennington. I'm curious where the funding for the NuKases came from, or if there was a grant that was written to get funding for them.
Yes, there was. We did not have a grant for it. I think Kat shared the unfunded mandate piece that came, so thank you for that. So for the high school budget, I could pull up the spreadsheet. I can recall some of it, but I looked through every line to figure out where we might be able to find this. It was $18 per NuKase. I ordered 700, even though I don't have that many students, because that was what was suggested in terms of what we might need. We also have some CTE students that travel from different schools, and when they're here, they'll need to use their NuKase. So it was a total of $14,200. came from different areas. For example, I'm really grateful our athletic director won the lottery for his national conference through the NHIAA. Thank you. So we were able to take the few $1,000s for a personal conference there and add it. We were able to look at some of our budgets historically over the last few years to see where there were some dollars that we could take a little bit from here and there. I believe I took $1,000 from admin postage to think, okay, I can save a little bit there. So we were really careful about where we could try to take the funds from. And I think we fell just, Dr. Force and the SAU helped me with about $3,000 of that to get us to where we needed to be. Some of the other things we were looking at cost substantially more at $30 or $32 per pouch. And we also really liked, and I'll speak for myself because I spoke to the NuKase rep with Mr. Simoneau, one of our other assistant principals, and we really liked that there was a cleanliness to it. So if somebody spilled a coffee, it's not like the pouch is smelling and all these different pieces. Also, I watched a lot of things about different pins and pouches and how things could be easily navigated through. And so this seemed like a pretty secure system. I hope that answers your question enough. I'd be happy to, I just can't remember every line item that I took it from. Yeah, you're welcome.
Hello, Doug Sutherland Hancock. I was thinking about it the whole time. Wait a minute. Oh, so I know this is going to be the student's responsibility. If they bring their phone, they put it in the case. As someone was saying about their kids, they may forget. So there's no way for them to leave here forgetting to unlock their phone from the case, getting home, like, oh no, and stressing out. They just have to wait till the next day, I'm assuming.
Well, I will say, usually there's an administrator here for several hours after the school day ends. So of course, I feel pretty confident saying if somebody got home and realized, which I think they would within the first hour, that they would able to come back to the school and one of us would be here to help them.
Okay.
Yes.
It's their responsibility if they're bringing it, but that's my opinion.
It
But
is. So I can't guarantee that, but I would say I
Yes.
have a good hunch that someone would be here to assist them.
Excellent. And the other thing, this is more of a comment, and again, I'll make it brief. At the middle school, the whole idea of after the school day, waiting for a ride, they can't use their phones. I understand they could possibly walk out into the road and get hit by a bus. I get that. I wonder how often that happens, which I'm guessing not a lot. I know, you're all high school for the most part. But anyway, I would encourage you just to rethink that, as I don't have a child in the middle school anymore, but it was nice to know when she was staying after or whatever, she can use her phone to let us know when she was done. I just want to put that out there if you're that worried about them getting hit by a bus. Okay, I get it. I don't want them to get hit by a bus. But at the same time, after the school day, I like the high school, bell to bell. I just want to put that out there.
I appreciate your feedback. You'll see in the law that we need to develop this policy with input from the families and, does it say students also? I mean, we've been trying to solicit feedback from the community and parents, so I appreciate that and we'll bring it back.
There is one more question here from Lisa Walker. She asked about whether the NuKase was for the middle and the high school, or just the high school. I think you answered that. She wanted to know how much did it cost to purchase all the cases.
Yep.
I think
$18 per case, 700. I believe it was 14,200. Someone can check my math.
Okay, 14,200. And will teachers be allowed to use cell phones during downtime, such as lunch and free periods? People are very concerned about what the teachers are doing.
Thank you. Teachers can, if they are in their private workspace, and I mean, I'll just speak for myself. Work comes first, but teachers also have access to landline phones that they can use. So, most tasks can be taken care of with a landline phone or computer. Our computers are great, so.
Oh, go ahead.
Just one more thing. Just a comment, Melissa Gallagher from Hancock. I just want to thank you. I think this is the right step. I have a lot of close teachers in my life that are in places where this is already being implemented, and I can tell you there's a change. There's a change in the classroom. There's a change in the way kids are engaged in learning and in the way they're engaged with each other. Talking to each other, having conversations. It's just like, I hope this. I really hope this for our school, and thank you all for spearheading it. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you. Any other question? Yep.
Victoria again from Bennington. I'm also a middle school teacher, so I know smart watches were part of that law. What happens with those? We're hearing at the high school about the cases. I assume it would be the same consequences if we see the watch, it goes to the office, the same process? Yep. Okay.
That's one of the changes when we handed out the new policy. We initially thought we could keep smartwatches if with the idea that students would have to turn off notifications, because we do see the benefits of kids tracking their steps and their sleep and their, so those pieces. But no, we heard from legal very clearly that we don't have that flexibility. So we need to ask, ideally, I think the kids should leave smart watches at home so they don't get damaged if they're put into a bag or case. But yes, they will be asked, will follow the same consequences.
Liam Armstrong from Dublin again. It says multiple times, and it defines the personal communication devices. However, devices that are not able to provide internet/cellular connection, such as iPods, or like Walkmans. I don't know if anybody uses those anymore. Will those be allowed to at least some amount, or no?
I'm trying to think if I've seen a Walkman or a. Have you seen one? Okay. Well, I guess if it's not a personal communication device, like in class, of course, you'd be engaged with the lesson, but this is specific to personal communication devices.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You have a question?
Well, kind of. Not a Walkman, but a iPod that does not have internet connectivity is an MP3 device, which I think you said was not allowed. So
I'm thinking Walkman.
a Walkman, that's like a CD.
The law, the law and our policy is specific to personal communication devices that have the ability to connect with the internet and to communicate through. So something like a Walkman, having like flashbacks of those. They're not covered by the policy, so that would, like at the elementary level, we don't want kids to bring things like that to school, right? Because they get broken or there are fights about them on the playground. So we ask students at the elementary level to keep personal items at home for that very reason. So as far as the middle and the high school, it would be, they would only be able to use that if the teacher gave permission.
Anyone else? Okay. Do either of you wish to make a closing statement, or?
I just want to thank again my amazing educators and staff who did a lot of work on this before the law came into place. So thank you to the Conval High School staff who took the initiative and the time and all of the presentations and have met with me twice this summer about this evening because they felt so strongly about it and want to champion this for our students. So I'm just very grateful. And for Dr. Forrest for supporting us too.
And as was stated before, the School Board Policy Committee does have a draft of a policy that we will be firming up within the next couple of weeks. And we appreciate all the feedback that we've gotten from people and the information that was provided for us at the school board meeting by the study committee. And that'll be a big help as far as putting the policy together. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and that will finish us up for today. Thank you.